is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 261. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at Pegasus Podcast by ksn@gmail.com. Christian, how you doing?
Doing great.
Great. All right. Awesome. That actually threw me off. Now I don't know where to go from there. You bother me. I don't like you.
I love that the first time I don't have some. I've realized for the starts of our podcasts, you typically ask me how I'm doing, and I always immediately go into some sort of grievance. And I feel like people should know that that's not like rehearsed or an intentional thing. Like, we'll start the podcast with Christian's grievance. There's just typically something bugging me that day. And
nothing's bugging you?
No, plenty of things are bugging me. Just nothing the listeners would care about.
Okay, that's fair. I'm exhausted, so
okay.
We'll see how this podcast goes. I was at a wedding this weekend, which was very fun. The downside of it was on my way back yesterday, I got a speeding ticket, which I wasn't even going that fast. And
he told me how fast he was going. It was unbelievably fast. I think he should be in jail. It was not. I can't believe you got pulled over for that.
Yeah, so it was like I had such a great time, great weekend. I actually met a listener, shout out Thomas, and it was a great time. And then it was like already kind of like, oh, sad, like got to get back home and like start a new week. The fun weekend is over, and it was like, hey, what if like we make the start of your week even worse by pulling you over, and then give you two hours to think about that for the rest of your drive home. So that was fun, but yeah, no, I'm tired. And
man, don't you just wish you had?
This is my grievances. This is my grievance hour now. We're just gonna do that. Start the podcast with my grievances.
I just gave you a great hook to go into the topic, and you just steamrolled right over it. So.
Well, you kind of also froze as you were talking, so I didn't even hear it.
Oh, okay. Well, I said, don't you just wish that you didn't get a speeding ticket? But on top of that, I got ahead of myself because I have an announcement to make before we even get into the topic.
Oh God,
so
yeah, I
need to
forgot
cover that first. So, we've been doing some soul searching, and I think one of the most important things that a podcast can do, really any business of any kind, not that this is a business, it's a literal podcast, but an important thing a podcast can do is be reflective and think about what's working and what's not working. And we are very aware that not every aspect of this podcast is perfect. And we are going to take what actions we can take to make that not the case and to make the parts of this podcast that we don't care for and we are ashamed of better. So starting this week and for every podcast for the rest of the time we're doing this podcast moving forward, we have a new thing called the John Rice Plumlee Swear Jar. And as soon as I am done explaining this, it will take effect. And the way that works is, no, Bailey, that doesn't count because I have to say his name to explain it. And from now on, for the rest of the time this podcast exists, there will be no more organic mentions of JRP that we didn't even plan on every single episode, despite him being gone for many years, because from now on, every single time one of us says John Rice Plumlee, JRP, my boy John, any of it, they have to put I lost Bailey.
No, none of us have ever said my boy John, so
they have to put $1 in the John Rice Plumlee Swear Jar. And if you're wondering where this money will be going, perhaps to a charity, we're just going to use it once a year to get food. So that is the new rule.
I love that. I love that. That's also what I kind of forgot that was the end of your pitch to me when you sent it to me yesterday, because I didn't like the idea because I was like, it's just, I don't know. I don't like it because it's just going to happen.
Which I also opened to you with, I have an idea that you're going to hate, was I think what I texted you. And
always a great thing to hear from you. But yeah, I forgot. I just completely forgot like the whole idea, or like the end of the idea was at the end of the year, however much money is in it. But like, if this thing works and there's not that much money in it, like there's like $3 in it at the end of the year, we're going to use it to get food.
Now, I thought
go to the
about
gas
that.
station and just get some drinks.
No, because I did think about that, and then I thought about us, and I know there's going to be real money in this by the time the year's over. Because we're obsessed
I'm gonna forget
with that, apparently. So I know and I made clear to Bailey, because Bailey tried to weasel out of it, of course, since he just apparently wants this to be a John Rice Plumlee podcast.
I do,
and said that, well, what if I have to mention him organically? Like, it actually makes sense. It should never make sense. He was a subpar quarterback who hasn't been here for years. We're done.
It will though.
When I say years, I mean a year and a half, but still.
Can I now air out the reason why that you got this idea?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead, actually, because it ties into what you just said. about
Yeah.
your weekend?
So yeah, I shouted out Thomas earlier, who I met this weekend, and I also now need to say that this whole swear jar is your fault, and you're making my life harder now, because one of the first things you said to me is, how much is John Rice Plumlee? Doesn't count because we're still explaining the idea. How much is he paying you to keep bringing up his name? And I relayed that message to you, and then a day later you come to me and said, I have an idea. We can't say his name anymore.
So, hey, Thomas, I've never met you, and I appreciate you listening to the podcast, and it's always cool meeting a listener. When Bailey meets a listener and tells me the first thing they bring up is how much we talk about John Rice Plumlee, I barely slept that night. Like, we're done. We're done with the John Rice Plumlee talk. So I'm gonna clap my hands, and then it's in. So do you want to get one out of your system? Or are you good?
Yeah, I will. Real quick out of my system. Just want to shout out my boy John. We won't be talking about you anymore. But yeah, clap your hands. Let's do it.
John Rice Plumlee. Okay.
I love you had to get one more out. Just say the three. Yeah. Okay. I almost just immediately messed up because it wouldn't have fallen into one of the pockets of what you said.
Yeah.
But okay. What we're doing for the podcast today. We celebrate our birthdays this month. I'm so in my head right now about saying it. Like I'm just gonna. He has nothing to do with this part of the podcast, and I'm still like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it.
Buddy, if we can't get through one episode without saying it, we have to.
Well, now I'm just gonna. It's just every time we do the podcast, it's just gonna be in my head, and it's gonna drain the quality of the podcast because I'm gonna not be able to focus.
What are you gonna do if there's news involving him? Like that needs
not
to
gonna include it.
News. There you go. See, look, we're erasing him from our podcast. I love it already.
So yes, we celebrated our birthdays this month. This is our last podcast of the month of March. Your birthday was last Friday. Yep. So happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
Mine was the beginning of the month. And we thought, okay, how can we make this podcast even more self-indulgent? Let's celebrate our birthdays one last time for this month. We're each getting 3 birthday wishes pertaining to UCF. Then as we were talking before the podcast, you brought up a genie, and I said, hey, listen, it's actually birthday wishes, remember? And you were like, oh, yeah, that's right.
To say I brought up a genie, I absentmindedly to myself, not even talking to you, just goes, there's a genie in front of me. And I get to wish them at UCF, and you just go, okay, that's just not what the scenario is that we decided on. But
yeah, we're blowing out a birthday cake, a proverbial birthday cake.
I've got my 3 wishes. And I should also say that we discussed very little what this would mean.
Yes.
So this could go in a million directions. We have
the only idea. Directions I said it can't go is we can't say
the genie.
Yeah, we can't ask the genie, the birthday genie. I wish UCF would win a national championship, or I wish UCF would go undefeated. Can't do anything like that because that's just the obvious answer, and that would make for a very boring podcast.
When you were a little kid, did you think like the birthday wishes were like legitimate?
I don't know. I feel like it's easy for me to say right now, like no,
okay.
I never did, but I can't really remember. I'd have to ask my parents, I guess. Like, did I actually believe when I was younger that my wishes? Because the whole thing was always like, you can't say what your wishes are. So like now that we're telling everybody, all the listeners, what these wishes are, they're not going to come true because
I wish that UCF goes 0-12 in.
Oh, that's not going to come true.
We saved it. All right. I wish that UCF goes 1-11. I wish that UCF goes
2-10. Yeah. So other than that, we don't have any parameters. So I really don't know what's going to happen with yours. Cool. You don't really know where mine are going. So let's hear your
first the Pegasus podcast would end. Am I going first?
You jokingly told me what one of your wishes could be, and I will counter with that wish if you say what you're going to say.
No. I couldn't remember what my. By the way, I have to ask Bailey just really quickly. You texted me a wish earlier, and I wasn't sure if that counted as one of your wishes.
Did I?
You today, not a part of the wish conversation, texted me, quote, I wish Mikey Keene would be our friend.
Oh. All right. Well, now I wish I could provide context to that, but I can't really because it's just no one's going to care. But yes, if Mikey is listening or if any of his family members are listening and you want to relay that message to him, that'd be nice. So,
but anyway, now that we've got
that's not one of the wishes that I will be expanding upon. But
I can start with mine. My first wish is I wish that the new UCF football uniforms are a smash hit with the fan base.
Okay. I like that idea.
And the good news is that I am certain they will be. And you might be saying to yourself, Christian, how could you be certain that they will be? You don't know anything about them. The fans are famously anti-uniform these days. And the reason I know that they will be a smash hit is because Scott Frost is the coach. And everyone's just going to go, hell yeah, Frost is back and Drip U is back. That tweet's going to hit. Book it right now. Doesn't matter what they look like. That tweet's going to hit.
Are you ready to be really disappointed in me?
Maybe.
You saying that was like the first reminder I've had in a while that like, oh yeah, they're getting new uniforms soon. Like, I'm sure that's probably been on your mind every single day since that dropped. And I have
literally every single day I was thinking about it because we've talked about
you
this
said
before.
that I was like, oh yeah, they are getting uniforms.
So one of the things I do in the off season, because I'm a certified just nut job, is I will, as soon as we have the football schedule, I
didn't mean to nod when you said that. You said my nut job and I went
I didn't even notice you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, if you've listened for any amount of time, you know I'm not lying. But as soon as we get the football schedule, I go in my phone and I set up each game, and then I make my ideal uniform combo for each game. And then I repeat that probably 20 or 30 times over the course of the offseason. I'm serious. Like, it's just a thing I do when I'm bored. Like, I'm like, let's dream up combos for games. And this is, again, one of the rare off seasons where I can't do it because I don't know what I'm working with. And so, like, it really is on my mind every day. So, but I just, after, it's been unfortunate to see UCF wear some pretty solid uniforms these last few years. Wear some of the coolest stuff they've ever worn, period, at times, and see fans generally reject it, largely, let's be real, because the team isn't good and people are in a bad mood. And that's made me very sad. Yeah,
and like when I think about like the past few years, one of the things I kind of go straight to is like the new face masks they've worn.
Yeah, man.
Like some of the coolest stuff they've done, and yeah, people are like, "Oh, Drip U's dead," all this garbage, and yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the whole coming up with like combos for every game, because I remember I wanted to do a segment once where you pitched like what you wanted each combo to be for the season. You're like, no one wants to hear that, and I still think you're wrong.
I don't think it, because it's not. I'm a big, pulling the curtain back on the podcast, I'm a big anti like we give our takes on things that are never going to happen, if that makes sense. Like, for example, the episode.
Most of these wishes probably aren't going to happen. So
no, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. Like, it's just super, like, I don't want the podcast to be activities people would probably rather just do on their own. Like, I feel like the average listener would rather just think of combos themselves than hear me spout what I think they should wear.
Let us know what you think, because now I had a new idea of when the new uniforms drop. I want to hear what combos you'd wear. That's how we tie it in. I want to hear what combos you'd wear for the schedule. And I don't know. I think people would.
Well, I could do it a little. Like, I could do it right now, because I don't think UCF's going to be like, surprised we don't have black jerseys anymore. Like, I think that, like, you know, there will be.
Yeah, but I'm saying to make it more timely and to make more sense, we could do it when the uniforms drop.
Okay. We will do that. Or we'll just have me screaming high pitched for an hour about how
we did a segment last summer on like the fun UCF things to do with the new video game. And so I don't think this would be
I forgot
that far off.
Bailey, that was educational. We told people what to do in the game if they were UCF fans.
Yeah.
I should check back and see how many of those I've done in the year that game's been out.
I should too, because I don't know. I also haven't played. Actually, I played it for the first time in like months. I played it over the weekend. And actually won a game, which was nice. But
we're not going to go down this rabbit hole because we do have a podcast to do, but me and a group of friends have a dynasty in the college football video game that Bailey was in and then quit because he said it was too hard.
I left because I was not enjoying myself, and it was actively making my life worse.
You did break a headset at one point while we were playing and had to leave to
go
buy a new headset. So maybe it was good for your mental health.
That story has been told on the podcast before. So thanks for bringing it back up for a second time.
No I wish Bailey could control his temper when playing video games.
I wish I could too. Maybe I would be back playing with you guys again, but it was ruining my life. So
you were pretty down about it. But yeah, that is my first wish. I hope that the new uniforms are embraced with love and joy from all corners.
I like that wish. Yeah. Here's one that kind of, it almost like plays into what you just said about like the fans and the Drip U stuff, and it's a little more negative. And I'm not trying to be mean to anyone, but
go ahead.
My first wish is I wish for UCF fans to stop rallying around dumb takes and picking dumb hills to die on.
Like, I knew where you were going with this immediately.
I understand that every fan base has like a few like, just it's every fan base. But I feel like, and maybe it's just because I see it more, but I feel like there are more times like than anything else where there's just an uneducated take or just like a thing that doesn't matter, and then everybody decides to care about it for a week, and it just becomes a talking point that like doesn't serve anyone. And especially when it happens and it like breaks the containment of UCF Twitter, it makes it, again, and national fans see it or whatever. I think it makes UCF look bad. It makes UCF fans look bad. I wish it would. I'm trying to one of the ones that I always think back on, because remember that list of there was one every week in 2023. The one that I always think back to, I think, from that season is how it was unfair that Boise State could wear blue uniforms on blue turf, as if they haven't been doing that forever.
It's funny that that's the one you look back on as the craziest one, because the one I look back on as the craziest one was when we had a full fan base meltdown because they had fans wear white while the team wore night mode.
That one too. Like this is what I'm talking. Like remember they wanted the bounce house DJ fired because he didn't play Zombie Nation enough. It was like it's just
they lost the Baylor game because students left early.
Yep. It's every week, and I understand like it is a diehard fan thing to do in some senses, because it's like when there's nothing going on, I feel like people will kind of just like conjure up something so that we have something to talk about and everybody can chime in on. But I'm tired of it. And I
just want to really quickly, I have the list. It was from Sam at Hohei Fritz. Just really quickly to go through it. It was this UCF Twitter Civil War 2023 timeline. Week 1, rained out tailgates. Week 2, Boise State all blue uniforms. Week 3, why are we not getting AP votes? That was the whole thing. Week 4, moral victory part 1. Week 5, student section conundrum. Week 6, Frankie Valley. That was when the Frankie Valley stuff started. Week 7, Canaveral blue uniforms. Remember the space uniforms dropped that year and everyone hated them with a fire.
They were in the middle of a losing streak.
I could pull up some tweets that would make you look foolish, because people were like, these are the worst space uniforms. They've lost their touch. Cancel the space game. Then 2 weeks later, those same people were like, those were the best space uniforms ever. Top of my list. Week 8, moral victory part 2. Week 9, fire somebody. Week 10, storm the field or don't. That was a big one.
You were big. You were heavy in that one. Yeah,
I was very anti-storm the field. Week 11, student section part 2. Week 12, Kingdom NIL. I believe week 12 is when the whole private jet thing happened.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. I think what's cool, I think one of the most enduring, there's a fly in my room, and it's trying to land on the brim of my hat. The UCF agent trying to tell me to stop talking about all the fan wars. I think one of the most enduring legacies of the 2017 UCF era is that UCF rose to the top of the sport, has now tumbled back to the bottom. And through all of that, every single time some sort of college football fan account or national account makes some most hated fan bases list, UCF remains on the list. Yeah. I said lift, I meant list, but you get it. Because, and it's like, they are not, like UCF is pretty inarguably not super relevant in football right now and hasn't been for a couple years, but the fan base has remained relevant largely through dumb things. And I think maybe that's a badge of honor, could be. And I think part of it is every fan base has the fans who will like get on Twitter with 180 followers or whatever. And that sounds like I'm shaming follower accounts. I know, like that sounded very judgmental as soon as it came out of my mouth, but you know what I mean? Some like not major, like not big, whatever account. And we'll go like, I think that just something stupid. Like, I think the field should be black. Why is the field green? Why don't we be like Boise and have a black field? And like other fan bases would be like, okay. And UCF's fan base will like, everyone will be like, he's right, and just rally around it. And then half the fan base will be like, no, he's not. Like they will just, anyone can tweet anything on UCF Twitter and it will elevate to like, we all need to weigh in on this thing.
I don't even remember what exactly, and I don't know if there's one that I can pinpoint that made me like that I thought of when I made this wish. But I did also, when I was thinking about examples, I thought about this past season when all of a sudden it just everybody decided to start tweeting about how RJ Harvey was better than Kevin Smith.
Yes.
And it's like, that is an entirely random take that became a giant talking point for like 3 weeks.
Not just better than Kevin Smith. There was a big push that RJ Harvey is the greatest player in school history.
Yes. And I understand like that's part of that is ingrained these days in sports dialogues, like who's the GOAT of this or that. Like that is just a thing. And I think in some ways that hurts sports dialogue a ton because it's dumb and it's not productive a lot of times. But that was an example of it where like that became a talking point. And I guess part of it was like there was nothing to play for at that point for UCF.
You have to talk about something. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like the last like 4 weeks of the season, it was like just constantly RJ Harvey is the GOAT. He's the best running back in school history. And it's like, you can also, like, I mean, we had to do at the time, it was like, we were like, we don't want to be in a position where we have to diminish RJ Harvey. But
that's
UCF
why I was
fans,
so frustrated, because
UCF fans were making us do it.
Where it's like, hey, UCF's 4-7, everything sucks. Why don't you attack the best player on the team? And it's like, why would you put me in that situation where I have to do that? But this is not unique to UCF, but I do just think among sports fans in general, this fly will not leave me alone, man.
I can't even see it, so it looks funny that you're just kind of like wiping it away.
For anyone who watched Breaking Bad, that one episode is what I'm going through right now. Like, you're going to be watching me have a full mental breakdown over this. Bailey's nodding his head. He has no idea what I'm talking about. He's never watched the show.
I've watched part of the show.
One of the best episodes of that show is he's in the lab and there's a fly and he can't get the fly, and that is like the entire episode. And it's
how late or early is that?
You're never gonna watch the show, so I'm not even.
No, I'm just saying how late or early, because I did watch. I don't remember when I stopped, but
it's late. I think it's like season 3 or season 4.
Okay. I don't remember when I stopped. It was a long time ago.
It doesn't matter. But anyway, I don't remember it's not just it's on my laptop. This is interesting because I can hit it right now, but doing so will definitely eject me from this episode because he's on the space bar. He flew off. He made the choice for me. Anyway, I'm never going to get this point out. It's becoming the Breaking Bad episode. I can't get past the fly. Whatever, just move on.
This fly is going to become UCF fans' rallying point for the next 3 weeks, and I'm going to hate it.
Next wish.
What?
Wait, it's me. I'm the next wish.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, you're next.
My next wish is I wish, and I don't mean 2025, maybe I do. I wish that UCF just gets one special season in under Frost at some point. I think that given what he means to the program and to the fans and kind of how his reputation has suffered in college football, I think them having a special season under him, and I don't mean going undefeated, I just mean a season where, like an Arizona State season, like was something they just had. They unexpectedly rise to the top of the conference, playoff appearance, something along those lines where we can all just kind of celebrate that with him again is something I find myself really craving and hopeful that can happen, because I have this kind of nightmare scenario in my head where UCF, it's not like Frost is bad and gets fired, but it's just like they just never really rise above like 7 or 8 wins and just kind of end up stuck treading water in that area for all time.
I wish I would have thought of that, because that's a good one.
Well, we're talking about it either way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I know, but I just like, that is a good, because like I watched the first video they put out, I guess they're calling the series Rise. I watched that earlier today, and every time I see Scott Frost in UCF gear again, I just kind of get nostalgic and think like, man, like I don't want that to only be a past thing. Like I just, it would be so cool. And I think part of it too is almost just to validate what you can, some people will call it an experiment, because when he was rehired, everyone's like, what are they doing? This guy has been out of college football for a couple of years. Last time he was in it, it went horribly wrong. Like he shouldn't really be a head coach again this quickly.
Right.
But for UCF, everyone was kind of just like, yeah, but like the fit just feels right. And I want that to be validated. And I want that to kind of on a national level, everyone kind of be like, yeah, like I want everybody to kind of walk it back almost and be like, at the time he was hired, we thought it was crazy, but like, obviously like there's just something special there. Like I want that narrative to come true. And yeah, I hope it does.
Let's live in absolute fantasy land for a second and say that this year things go far better than any of us could have ever anticipated. Say they go 9-3, they drop UNC, go 7-2 in the Big 12, and they play for the Big 12 title. That would be such an incredible experience because it's happening with Frost. Like that exact season with like Jamie Chadwell or Barry Odom doesn't mean what it means if it was Frost doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that even with them dropping 3 games and being 9-3, like that would be like as much of a celebration and excitement and buzz as like 2017 was at points.
Dude, especially this year, I would take another speeding ticket for a 9-3 season this year. Like I'm forgetting what it was like to win that many games. Like it's 9 games it was only a few seasons ago, really, if you think about it. But like that season was so frustrating itself that it didn't.
It is funny that UCF has recently very recently won 9 games in back-to-back seasons, and both of those seasons were hellholes that I would never want to experience again. Yeah. But also college football's changed. Like 9 wins ain't what it used to be. Like I think that means more now just because the conferences are aligned differently and it's harder to win.
Especially one of those seasons being a 9-5 season. You and I have long talked about like the ugliest records to look at, and 9-5 is up there with
9-5 is bad. 8-6 is bad. I just hate both those records.
8-6.
Just awful records. And then there's the rare put up by Rutgers a couple years ago, 5-8, which is another good one.
Yeah, that's insane. But no, yeah, I hope it all works out. Like, and I do wonder. I've kind of found myself wondering what the leash is going to be like, and obviously there are other factors to that. And
well, I'll tell you what the leash is going to be because, and I could be way off base, but I'm not. If Frost doesn't work, Mahajer's gone. He's tied to this hire. Like, so I think the leash will not be so much determined by Mahajer, but by above him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I think that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah. So like, I don't think anyone would believe that they're going to turn it around this year, but like by next year, I can say it's already crazy. It's crazy to say like by next year, they're already going to have to be like, I wouldn't say like a Big 12 title contender, but like they're already like going to have to be back in bowl eligibility. Like it's going to be like do or die almost as far as bowl eligibility in year 2.
I think it entirely depends on what happens this season. I really do. And what kind of team they're taking into next year. And we're just not going to know till then, because if this season is like a 2004 George O'Leary type season where the roster bottoms out, they're starting from scratch, like 3-9, like you've predicted, then yeah, next year the goal is going to be like get back to a bowl game. Do not go through. If this year they're like 6-6 and go like, I don't know, maybe like 3-6 in conference or something like that, then 2026 turns into like, win the conference, which is stupid and won't be realistic, but that's how people are going to react.
Have I asked you, or have we talked about this yet? Maybe it's too early to do this, but you know how we like to play the button game, right? Where like if you could press a button.
If you could press a button.
If you could press a button and lock in 6-6, 3-6 in conference right now, we would do that, right?
Without a doubt.
Because like obviously, like if you don't press the button, there is the chance they do better than that. But like I can't envision them doing better than that. So it's like
and I'm sure there are people listening to this screaming at us and are like, no, mediocrity acceptors, but like understand the reality of the situation. Like they might do better than that, but they're not going to do much better than that. Like I think this season, like stars align, everything goes perfect is 8-4. And I don't think that's going to happen. And I think based on what we know now, I think it could potentially be bad. So yeah, I would lock in 6-6, 3-6. That means you got to win over UNC in non-conference, beat a few Big 12 teams, perfectly acceptable year one under Frost. Now, I have two concerns. The first with 6-6 is that if they go 6-6, the 2016 parallels, like everyone's just going to be like, oh, good news, we're winning all our games next year. Like that will be the entire talk of that offseason. My other thing is, let me talk a little bit about my nightmare scenario for Frost, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because I feel like we're conditioned that UCF acts a certain way. We've seen this play out multiple times over the decades. Like they get bad, they get a coach, they get good. Like we just kind of watch that happen. We've never seen UCF in a Power 4 conference. All bets are off. Totally different year of college football. My nightmare scenario is not Frost goes 3-9, he goes 3-9 again, and they move on or whatever. My nightmare scenario is, let's say it's all right. 2025 go 4-8. 2026 go 7-5. 2027 go 6-6. 2028 go 8-4. 2029 go 7-5. 2030 go 6-6, and they're just stuck in the 6 to 8 win range, and that's just what UCF is. Because you're never going to really be able to fire Frost for that, but or whoever does it. Like Frost could leave, another coach comes in, they still keep doing it. I just wonder for the Frost era. I guess let's stick with that. The Frost era in particular, I really do just wonder. I know how fans will react to them being terrible. I know how fans will react to them getting back to where we think they should be. I don't know how fans are going to react to them being like a mid-tier Big 12 team for multiple seasons.
It's a good conversation. I think we should maybe even have for another podcast at some point, maybe this summer or in a couple months. Because like we could look at other power conferences. There are so many programs that are like that are just all they ever really are is like middle of the road. Their best seasons are like 8-4, and that's just kind of what they are. And none of us believe that's what UCF should be and will be, but there's a reality where that's like UCF's one of those programs, and we don't.
I don't think it's like a super crazy reality either.
Yeah,
I think it's a very, very real possibility that that's what we're in store for. And I know no one wants to hear that, and you're cringing. And but can I get really negative for a second?
Do it.
Let's do it. For my whole life, and I've said this before on the podcast, but UCF is in such a unique and dangerous position because there are teams in college football that are blue bloods and know they are blue bloods and act like blue bloods and expect to win the games that blue bloods win. And there are teams in college football who are not that and know they are not that and have not been that for all 130 years they've played in college football. UCF is part of a very, very, very small group of teams that is one thing, but believes their destiny is to be a better thing. I don't think the UCF fan base understands how not normal that is, but it's fine because that's been the story since 1979 that's the goal. Rise up, rise up, rise up. They've done it. And as recently as 4 years ago, I still believed that I thought UCF's long-term trajectory in my lifetime was to be another Ohio State type program. I believed with all my heart that with the inherent advantages they have, with the school's growth, with the growth of the area, they would turn into a team that is like a perennial top 15, top 20 program in college football. Mm-hmm. And what's unfortunate is that the changes that have taken place in the sport in recent years, I think, have effectively eliminated that as a possibility for UCF football and UCF athletics. And that doesn't mean I don't think that they can still be good and be better than what they are now. They obviously can, but I believe the window is shut tight on them ever being that, ever. I
don't disagree. And that's, it is. It's kind of like the harsh reality of where everything is. But yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting topic to explore further in the future, just because
we should.
There are a lot of examples of other programs. Like the first one that came to mind where I was thinking like Wake Forest, where like recently they had like an 8-4 season and like that was huge.
Yeah, but Wake Forest just flat out bad. Like I think I think a better example might be like an NC State or Wake Forest is just straight up bad most. Like I'm talking more the teams that just like they're never like they don't expect to be terrible, but they don't expect to ever be competing for anything important either. Like they're just kind of there, which is most of college football.
Let's do that at some point. 'Cause I'm trying to think of other examples. I'm having a hard time doing it off the top of my head. But if we put some thought and research into it, like we can.
But is that a reality fan? I like how you keep being like, let's have a topic about this later, and I'm like, no, let's do it now.
Let's do the whole podcast about it now.
But is a like. Because, all right, let's play a game. You do it first, because I know my answer. What's UCF ceiling as a program? And I know college football changes so much, so let's say for the next 10 seasons, what is UCF ceiling as a program in your mind?
Their ceiling, that's a broad question. In the next 10 seasons?
Yeah.
I almost, I want to say like a college football playoff appearance, one.
Yeah.
In the next
I'm in a similar boat. I think that like their absolute ceiling for the next 10 years is like a college football playoff appearance maybe once every like 4 years and maybe a win in the playoff like once. Like I think that's the ceiling. That is like everything went perfectly. Because the Big 12 is a league where like you're never going to stay on top of that league consistently. And depending on the playoff format they come up with, it's not like there's going to be a huge amount of access here to begin with. So I don't know. Like, and is that really not acceptable for fans? Like if UCF is going 8-4,
people are going to hate this whole conversation right here.
We're like people are tuning out. No one's ever going to listen to this again. Sorry, we tell the truth. Like if UCF's going 8-4, 9-3 most years, and every now and then they pop off for 11-1 or 10-2, is that really not acceptable to the fan base?
I love it.
That's better than the vast majority of college football. I'd be down. Like, I mean, I feel like people really need to get in their heads. That is the nature of the Big 12. There's no top, middle, or bottom of this conference. It's just 16 teams that are going to constantly switch places. So, like, it's got to be a roller coaster every single year.
Just beat up on each other every year. Yeah, and we had that realization, I think, even year one. I was like, this is just what it's going to be like. Every week is going to be – that could be the highest of highs, and then the next week it's a complete – That's what the biggest example I can think of, not even a UCF example, but they're kind of involved in it, was in 2023 – when Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma in their last game of that rivalry for the foreseeable future, and the next week turns around and loses to a UCF team that had just come off losing 5 in a row.
TCU played for a national championship, went 5-7, then went 9-4. Like it's just it's a nonsensical conference. And what's funny is we were talking about that 2023. What did the Big 12 do after 2023? They added 4 more teams that are just like all the other teams. Like they just made it worse.
Yeah, no, it's going to be crazy. Move on to my second wish. My second wish is, again, I didn't really mean to do this. It's a little more another kind of a little negative slant one, but I wish for the bounce house environment to get back to where it was. And I put pre-Gus. I think there was part of Gus's tenure where it was still up there. And I will once again bring up Thomas, who I met this weekend. Wanted to credit him for saying this because he told me I could use this. He said he felt like and I'm not 100% sure I agree, but it could be the case. He said that he felt that the Louisville loss in 2020,
Two.
Yeah, was the day the bounce house died. That's how he put it. And part of me, it is dramatic, but part of me agrees. And then the other part of me is like, well, no, what about the Cincinnati game later that year? But even the Cincinnati game later that year, when I look back at that game, the crowd was a good crowd. But when I think back to the end of that game and UCF winning that game, it had still kind of emptied out kind of a bit. And I don't think it was the same as it had been before. And I remember that Friday. It was a Friday night game against Louisville. It was fully sold out. It was like, I think it was a blackout. And it was like you remember the bounce house being, like what it got to.
Our podcast topic that week, if I remember right, was like, can UCF return to the national stage with a win over Louisville?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like their big showcase, we're back game. And it was like, it was just that they lost. It was that they looked terrible. Like, it was just an ugly, not fun game.
Well, they lost like 20-14 or something like that, I think.
I have a bounce house take.
Okay.
First off, let me just say really quickly, I looked it up. Since that Louisville game, UCF is 10-7 in the bounce house.
Cool.
That's really bad, and I don't think I realized that. I have a potential bounce house take, which is interesting, and I've just thought of it, which means it's true. Do you think that part of the bounce, which I don't know, I'm a little torn because like people act like the bounce house became what it became in 2017. Like my whole childhood, it's been a very tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's gone through ebbs and flows. Like that's Orlando sports fandom for you. Like the team's bad, people tune out. But do you think part of what kept the atmosphere so vibrant, and because remember the big thing about the bounce house that opposing teams would say is it wasn't just that it was loud, it was that it was never quiet. Like other stadiums go up and down with moments. Like UCF, it was just like this loud, crazy environment start to finish. Do you think it was because, or at least powered by the style of play of those teams where there were just lots of big home run plays basically from start to finish of each game? And even when UCF was winning under Gus, it was more methodical and the points weren't flowing freely like that. And there weren't always these big rally moments. It was more just they'd drive down the field and score.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I do, because when I think about the last couple of years, obviously the team not being great is a big reason. But even the team not being great, like until I think maybe toward last year, the crowds were still good to start off the games. Like, we've talked about it on the podcast, like it was a credit to UCF's fan base that the bounce house was still packed. And I think everybody kept showing up hoping that would be the week that the team turned it around, and it never really was. But I still think back to, like even when they were winning in 2022, even like and it was hard because 2021, obviously Mikey gets thrown in, and it's an offense that never really had a high ceiling once Dylan went down. So it was, they won that Tulane game, whatever, 14-10 or whatever it was. But yeah, I think the style of play certainly could have played a role in it. I think how bad the defense is, because like you want to get loud when the defense is on the field. And I think it got to the point where UCF's defense was so bad that no one ever believed they were going to get a stop on a big third down. So they would go through the motions of getting loud for a third down, but it was never really the same. I kind of wonder if that's part of it too, because the defense has been so frustrating that it was just, it was kind of, it almost got like going through the motions apathetic rather than we really believe we're making a difference here.
I think that's fair. I think that, and I'm looking at the point totals from 2021, the home games. It is really bad. They went undefeated at home that year, though. But I do want to point out, too, just to not come away as like not respecting the fan base's efforts in the bounce house or anything like that. Let's be real. UCF was 4-7 this year, and they host Utah on Black Friday. Utah sucks. UCF has nothing to play for, and until like the rain came. Was it rain? Was that what happened that night?
Rain, yeah.
And like
it was cold. It was pretty chilly and rainy. The game was it wasn't even bad. It was just completely forgettable. But the start of that game, bounce house is full. Bounce house is rocking. People are loud. Like the noise level was up there with where it was for pretty much any bounce house game I covered. Like even through everything, the most recent home game that was still there. So it's like I don't think that can't come back. It's just every step of the way that the team could have given fans a little bit of something to reward them for that these past few years, they just kind of didn't do it. Yeah, and that's why I actually, now that you say that, I kind of want to make it clear that this isn't a anti-fan base wish. The team has a lot to do with it, in terms of style of play and just success. Like obviously, if they're winning, it is going to be a big difference. But if they're winning and they're playing a similar style to what they did, with under Frost, under Heupel, I think it can get back to where it was. And honestly, I think the biggest thing, obviously, is just consistent winning. Because like, if it comes to the thing where they are going into a November game and they're 6-1, like that, the crowd's going to get up for it. I mean, look at the Colorado game this year. It was big noon, obviously, and like the bounce house that day for the very beginning of the game until what happened. It was in, like, they were into it, and that's kind of It's just, it's up to the team, obviously, to like you said, reward that and keep it going, because it's very easy, I think, these days to just be at a game, be like, here we go again, and it's just kind of, I found myself doing the same thing. Like this year, it was just like I was at the games, but I wasn't really at the games. It was kind of just like, all right, let me just watch. Let's see what happens, and it's not going to go well. I didn't feel like I was part of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
That it?
It's really, really frustrating.
Or am I freezing?
Yeah, we're having some technical issues, and I don't really know how to deal with that. Bailey, you're on a bit of a delay for some reason, so I don't really know what to do about that. But cool. Yeah, I think that's it for that one.
Yeah, let's hear your third one.
My third one, which is coming across as very superficial after that conversation, is I wish that the lazy river will actually get built at some point. And I know I've seen you on Twitter. I've seen you all. Look, they're clearing land where it's going to be. I don't care. I know the truth. They're still not planning to build that freaking thing. Like, I can just tell it's not happening. And like, I wish, because, and it's not even like, because part of me is like, I don't want to give up on the meme. Like, I enjoy it. I want to see if it's like, I want to see if we can get to 2040 and UCF still telling us this is happening. But at the same time, I'm just ready for it. I think it'd be cool. I think it would genuinely help in recruiting, maybe a little teeny tiny bit, probably less than before, since now players really just want money, and who can blame them? But I'm just, that would be such a cool, like, UCF, like, oh, we have this lazy river. It's so fun. Like, just imagine, think of how you felt, Bailey, when UCF won the Peach Bowl. Mm-hmm. Multiply that by 100. And that's how I'll feel the day that lazy river opens, for real.
That is an insane thing to say.
It's also not true. But come on, just make the lazy, like, just do it. Just build the freaking thing. Stop telling us, oh, yeah, we're almost there. You've been almost there since I was like 8.
Yeah.
That's
just, not since you were 8.
Or like 20, whatever. Just get it done.
Yeah. Oh, I might have just made this so much worse. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's really cool is you said I might have made this so much worse than immediately froze. So I would maybe not mess with things, because I think it's just going to make things a bigger problem.
Let me make it not worse again.
Okay.
That was fun for an experiment, but how about now?
Sure.
Okay, I'm a lot better. I'm trying to switch my headphones because I don't know if my headphones are the problem. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to be more optimistic about the lazy river than you, because I do see now they have moved the practice field, and there is dirt over there. But is it going to happen? I don't know.
This is not the first time I've seen them pour something out and say, look, here it is.
Hey, but
it's the second time I've seen it.
It's more this time, except I said it's more this time, although it's dirt, not sand. So I don't know if that counts.
Whatever. I don't believe them. That's my biggest UCF conspiracy. I don't believe they have any intention of building it. I know that's a crackpot theory, and I'm in on it.
I like it. I do like that you're that far in on it, that it's like you're convinced they have no plans to do it.
No, I will say,
but that they have no plans.
I will say, because jokes aside, like, yes, I think they in their heart of hearts think they're going to build it. I just don't believe they're correct. I do genuinely think Danny White had no intention of building it. I think it was entirely a fundraising shtick. Like, I don't, and the reason I know that is that, like, they would post concept art for it every now and then. Like, oh, look, we're like at an event and there's concept art. It looked wildly different in every single one of them. Like, I don't mean like little tweaks, like different part of like the stadium, like totally different. I think it was just a bunch of BS.
One of the things that we've talked about a couple of times, and I think you were the one that said it, was like one of the wilder things of the whole transition from administration to administration was the fact that idea survived.
I think about that all the time, man. Like, I thought, like, there was no part of my brain that was like, UCF's going to hire a new AD and he's going to go, oh, cool, you guys are building a lazy river. Well, I put waterfalls in my last stadium, so this is something I'd actually be very interested in. Let's do it.
Waterfalls in the bounce house would be sick, though.
Where would they go?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But it'd be pretty sick.
Yeah.
All right, let's do my third wish. This one is, again, not intended to be super negative. It's more negative on the past, but I wish for UCF to go through this season, the 2025 season, without losing 3+ games in a row. Back-to-back games happens. 3, 4, 5 game losing streak. I can't do it again. And I know they're probably not going to be. I know they're probably not going to be that good of a team this year. But if they can just kind of, I would take inconsistency over the consistency of losing that many games in a row. I don't really know how it would work out. Like if I think they're going to go 4-8, like I don't know how the breakdown would work out. But I cannot have them with a prolonged losing streak again.
So just to clarify, you're okay with 2 in a row, 3 in a row is just where you draw the line.
Kinda, because back-to-back, like it's not, I don't know, back-to-back with a bye week after the second loss is going to be bad. But yeah, I think 2 is where I draw the line. Like that can happen, but
to be fair, they did go through 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 without losing 3 in a row. So it's possible, but is it possible this season with this team and this conference with this staff? I'm not so sure, but I'd like that. I'm with you because, and I can tell you that the fan base knows this, but I feel like it's particularly, sorry, I got distracted. I texted my dad 9 hours ago and he just replied. It's particularly noteworthy when you're hosting a podcast and you're trying to come up with topics or, try to stay engaged. And it's like when the losses just stack, it just feels like you're living in hell. It really just feels like you can't remember what a win felt like. I mean, it's really hell. And to have done that twice in 2 seasons now, to watch them just lose 5 in a row multiple times I really want that. Like, I'm not saying just go win 10 games, just stop doing that.
When the losses stack up, I wish we didn't have a podcast.
I know. It's tough.
Because then I could try to check out, or I could plan other things to do on a Saturday. And I love how this has turned into, this is so hard on the podcasters. UCF, you need to be better. But
we're the real people who matter here. It's so difficult for us to have to talk for an hour about a team that sucks.
It is so frustrating, and I don't want to deal with it for a 3rd season in a row.
What do you think we'd talk about on this podcast if UCF was really good? I don't even know what that looks like.
That's a sad thought.
Because we're also not like a new podcast.
Yeah, no, this will be our 5th season, right? Yeah, this will be our 5th season, and the best they were was the best stretch. We got to go back to that stretch in 2022 of beating Cincy, Memphis, and Tulane, and that would be what our podcast would look like.
Even then, there was the earlier stretch going into the East Carolina game. They were 5-1, right? Like it was like, oh, okay, they're back to being UCF. Like we've basically a couple times we've gotten a single episode in of we cover a good team. And then UCF's like, surprise, and it doesn't happen.
I am ready to close out this topic and this wish because the more we talk about 2022 and 2023, the more scared I get. So I think this has been a positive step where we got through a full topic and we can now move on to men's basketball.
Do you eat a lot of fruit?
Do I eat a lot of fruit?
Yeah. Just in your life.
Where are you going with this?
Do you eat a lot of fruit?
I'm actually allergic to fruit, so no.
So you really want, what's the one? It's like kind of small or shaped like red.
You're stupid. You're dumb. I don't like you. Let's move on.
Drink a lot of milk?
Where's this? Sort of, but not really.
What's
I'm also
that
lactose intolerant.
What's the company? TG, what is the end of that?
How is this going to get me any closer to saying it?
Well, I figured if I could get you to say the fruit and then I could get you to say the end of that name, I could get you.
Oh, you're insane.
I didn't mean to just list things you're allergic to. That really wasn't my intention, but it was.
Yeah, back to back, you're just letting everybody know how messed up my life is. Yeah. All right, let's talk about
his name really does just come down to a name from the Bible, a food that's easy to cook instantly, a fruit, and then a milk brand. Like that's his name. It's those things in that order.
You got very close right there. Like that wasn't in the parameters of what you said we can't say, but I feel like that's
now it just feels like this might have been a mistake because now it just feels like he's hovering over the podcast like Voldemort or something, like just this person
we've kind of referenced him more on this podcast than we had been even when we were saying his name.
Let's stop talking about him. Let's stop.
All right. I tried to, and then you tried to get me to say things. So men's basketball, is losing the entire team before the college basketball crown starts. And I guess so far we haven't heard from Johnny Dawkins in a little bit so far, so we don't know, because last year I believe going into the NIT he had said like the guys who were entering the portal were still part of the team and could play.
Yeah.
So he might do that again. He might have to do that again.
They quite literally might not have a roster if he doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean there are some of these that obviously are more consequential than others. Mikey Williams being one of them, though he was hurt, so like I don't know that he was going to play anymore anyway. Niels Machowski, he played in 27 games this year, which I didn't even think I really realized, but that's another big one. Jalen Sellers shut it down. We were like, oh, cool, maybe he's going to come back. And I think there was some worry at the time that I was like, I wonder if he's just going to transfer. Then he's deciding to do that. Tyler Hendricks, Rokas Yotis, JJ Taylor was the latest one as of right before this podcast. Keyshawn Hall is declaring for the NBA draft. That happened today.
Yes.
A lot of this is all coming down before, I guess, we were a week out from the crown. So we'll see.
Shortly before we started the podcast, Brandon Hoeg reported that Keyshawn Hall is going to play in the crown.
Okay.
Pointed out that, Sellers and Mikey Williams are hurt anyway, so that's not starter. And he says, per a source, Johnny Dawkins is going to allow select portal players to play in the crown. So there you go. I think Tyler Hendricks will probably be one of them. Also, Brandon Hoeg included that the Crown announced today that the championship team will receive $300,000 in NIL money. The runner-up team $100,000 and $50,000 to each of the semifinalists. So if they win a couple games, there's actually some legit money here. There you go. But yeah, this is so not a huge problem for the Crown necessarily, but certainly a huge problem for next season when no one will be on the roster. That's assuming Chom comes back, which is like a big if. So
yeah, that's the one I'm most worried about. And I mean, the Sellers one was the other one of these that really bothered me the most, just because it's like I wanted to see him back, but
yeah, I could have talked myself into next year being potentially interesting with Sellers and Chom together. But I think the thing that we really need to get through our heads is it's so different from college football. Like, I think this is just what UCF basketball is now, whether you change the coach or not, guys. Like, I don't think that I think every year they're going to have to completely try again. Like, I don't think there's going to ever be roster consistency. And that's obviously not a unique to UCF thing. It's just, you look at how many guys enter the portal in football, but it's somehow padded by the fact that there's just the sheer number of guys on a football team. Like basketball, it's like 15 guys. Like 5 leave, and that's a 30-year team right there.
Yeah. And it's like, if you just compare sheer numbers, if you're like, hey, yeah, 15 players from UCF's football team enter the portal, and you say 9 from the men's basketball team, like the percentages of the teams themselves is so insane. So yeah, it's going to be a year-to-year thing. I said that a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it. Is it just, we thought they had built a team this year that was going to make the tournament. They didn't, and it kind of fell apart in the middle of the season. And what they're going to have to try to do is just try to build a new team next year. Like every year, it's just going to be try to build a team the best way they can to try to make the tournament that year. Maybe if they make the tournament, once and it'll kind of get players to stick around. But also, there's no guarantee that happens either.
No,
because you make a tournament, a player gets enough of a shine, and then a bigger program comes calling and gives them a bunch of money.
I also forget who it was. One of the Sweet 16 teams had a player hit the portal today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't understand.
Was it a important player?
I don't remember, but I really don't even sort of comprehend why the college basketball portal opens before the tournament.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Nonsensical. But yeah, shout out to UCF basketball. Hopefully they'll win the crown. What does that mean to you as a person? Like if they win the crown.
If they win the crown.
Because I think what's interesting now is like, since we've now established there will be no one back next year, like is the fan base less interested in that? Because it doesn't, like, they're like, well, it's not like we can say, oh, momentum for next year. Like it's just,
Probably.
Yeah, that's stupid.
It would be cool because it'd be like, oh, UCF wins the crown. Like the few days that they'd get coverage of it, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd still be really good exposure.
But yeah, like you just said, it wouldn't mean anything beyond that.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of a momentum. I've flipped on this over the years. I'm kind of a momentum believer in sports. I think the horrors UCF has put me through has sort of helped clarify to me that there is something to that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Like, I don't mean there's not necessarily anything tangible to it, but it's kind of like domino effects. Like, is UCF a more desirable portal destination? Is there a little more buzz on them? Are they a little more in front of players' faces if they go win it? I don't know. And maybe not. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. But
what it means to me, and it probably wouldn't play out this way, but what it would mean to me is kind of contingent on how it reflected on Johnny Dawkins. Because if they make a run in this and they won it, I feel like I could be like, this is the guy. And I don't want Johnny Dawkins to go anywhere. I still don't.
Yeah.
But everybody seems to want him out the door yesterday. And I don't know if it would change anybody's mind if they went on a quick little run here and won it. But if it did, that's what it would mean to me. It's like, hey, turn some opinions or flip some takes.
I just think everyone's so, I could be off base. I'm not. I just think everyone's so, like, Dawkins has kind of become the new Mike. Oh, I almost said it.
What were you going to say?
Dawkins has almost become the new, like, 2022 quarterback battle, where everyone is just very dug in on their take and no one's switching sides. Like, I don't think anything, like, everyone's just where they're at. And, like, no one's switching sides.
I can't believe this whole thing was your idea. And then I did, like, a good thing and was like, hey, let me steer this conversation toward basketball so that we're not even going to risk it. And you still found a way to pretty much bring him up anyway.
I didn't, though. So I didn't.
This might end the podcast.
I didn't bring it up.
I know, but like this whole concept might destroy the podcast. Like, I'm concerned.
Didn't say it
about the future of the Pegasus podcast.
Didn't say it.
I know you didn't, but
that's Johnny Dawkins.
If you were going to shorten?
No, that's not that.
All right, yeah, let's just move into the football news. There is not a lot. The Big 12 Pro Days happened last week. 18 UCF players participated. Some of the standouts, Penny Boone and Johnny Richardson, were the fastest among running backs in the shuttle and the 3-cone drills. Which, if the more I got so viscerally angry yesterday morning, and this was before the speeding ticket that I've now brought up 3 times, but. My boss at Pewter Report sent something about someone had posted a clip of Penny Boone on Twitter and was kind of just talking about like his size and just like kind of him as an interesting draft prospect. And the idea of him being on anyone's radar for the draft just makes me so angry at Gus Malzahn.
It's crazy, dude.
He just didn't want to acknowledge the man's existence.
I've long held that there is something off field that we don't know about because it just doesn't make sense from an on-field perspective. There has to be something. Yeah. Because I don't know if I saw that tweet, but I saw something along the lines of some national person being like hyping up Penny Boone. I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, he was basically the 4th string running back this season and barely ever saw the field. And despite looking good when he saw the field,
it will always blow my mind that Gus was asked about it, and he was like, "Well, Miles is back.
Miles is back." Also, really quickly, if you, as a listener, if you listen to Sons UCF Live, you know that once a week there's a segment called "Who Said It," where Trace Trilko may his Twitter account rest in peace, is read a quote from our episode that week and has to guess whether Bailey or I said it. And I select the quotes, and Trace is 3-1 in guessing correctly, and I'm growing quite frustrated. But now I have Bailey on camera saying, I was viscerally angry yesterday morning, and that was before the speeding ticket. And there is no way Trace will ever think that was him who said that. So that is going to be who said it this week. And I'm very excited about that.
It might be. I don't know. He might. If he still gets that. So you're basically what you're saying that is, or what you're saying about that is that it's more likely that he'll think you were the one who was viscerally angry and got a speeding ticket.
It sounds a lot more in character for me than for you to be viscerally angry and then get caught speeding. So I'm hopeful that he will take the bait. We'll just have to see.
We'll see. So interesting. Never mind. I don't have to bring that up now. We can talk about it after the podcast.
Okay.
Just I had a question about who said it, but it's not really interesting to talk about on the podcast. Game of the week. UCF softball. They are 20-14-1. They're 20-14-1, 3-6 in Big 12 play. They're currently 8th in the Big 12. Been a bit of a slide recently. They got swept at home over the weekend by Iowa State. They're at Baylor this weekend. Baylor's 13-19, 2-7 in the Big 12. They're dead last in the Big 12. Though obviously they're only one game behind UCF. Games are Friday at 7:30, Saturday at 3 o'clock, and Sunday at noon. This is one of those series that, at the very least, UCF needs to win it to get back on track. But this if they sweep this, it'll feel like, okay, we're kind of turning things around a little bit. Obviously, they play Florida on Wednesday, but it is more the conference play right now that I'm concerned about. That things I just said like 2 weeks ago, I'm having so much fun watching UCF softball and baseball this spring. Baseball, I'm less concerned about because that was just one series.
Yeah.
But softball has been a little bit longer of a slide, so they got to turn it around this weekend.
Softball has, the Arizona series ended up being like a wildly not representative thing of the team. Yeah, they've lost 7 of their last 8 games now.
Something like that, yeah.
This is more in line with what we thought they were going to be, except even worse. So hopefully they can turn it around. I agree with you. People were kind of freaking out, and I was fanning the flames a little bit because I just like to, cause trouble over baseball, losing the series to Houston. I'm not really bothered by that. They weren't going to just go win every series the entire season. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I looked at you. I was busy this weekend, so I didn't really get to pay a lot of close attention to it. And you sent me something along the lines of like baseball also being, so I was like, oh, that's annoying. And then I was looking at the schedules yesterday, or the schedules for this week yesterday, and I looked at baseball's record, and I was like, "Oh, that's not like they're fine." Like,
no, I enjoy how annoyed you get whenever I trash the baseball team, so I just text you a lot about the failures and really never mention
you. Really, a lot of I don't know. It's like I feel like more so than ever, our friendship is turning into you just doing things to make me mad. What's that about? What did I do to you?
I don't know. I think I might just be a bad person. Like that's what I do.
Like that's been a growing sentiment in like the last like few weeks or a month and a half.
So now I know where you're going with this because your hat ties into it. And I have texted you relentlessly about the Rays coming to Orlando.
Yes.
But that's born out of love that I harbor for the Rays.
No, it's not. You're a liar. You're a liar. I don't like
want
you.
them to come here.
I'm so done with this podcast. It's not even funny.
That's my team, man.
Shut up. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week. One thing I said to you before we got on the podcast is I fear that tweet of the week is sort of just evolving into like whatever annoyed me today, because once again, not a tweet this week. But I guess it's just like tweet of the week has become my free space to just do whatever I want to end the podcast.
Just like the top of the podcast.
Pretty much. So instead of tweet of the week, we have automobile of the week, and automobile of the week this week goes to this car. This is what I love about our podcast is if you're listening to the audio, I'm putting up a photo of a car that I took while coming home the other day, and it appears to be a Nissan. I have blacked out the license plate, so we're not just actively outing someone.
Good on you.
I'm fascinated by this car. If you're watching on YouTube, you can clearly see why. If you're audio, this is a car. The license plate is a UCF Vandy license plate, the new one with the stacked UCF logo, all black and gold. Then there's this big ass sticker on the windshield, USF alumni, with the Bulls logo. And my thing about this is I understand that life has many twists and turns, and I understand that not everyone, perhaps no one, lands where they thought they would or in the place they thought they'd be. I am here to tell you that there is no life story that makes this car acceptable. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy to have a UCF Vandy license plate that you have to go out of your way to install on your car and have ample opportunity to replace, and then also have a very large USF alumni sticker.
Yeah, I would like to point out too that above the UCF or the USF alumni sticker, there is a stethoscope with it makes a heart. So this person is clearly in healthcare. Thank you for your service to everyone. You do some really important work, and I am sorry you're being put on blast like this.
So a couple things on that. Yeah, that means they probably went to UCF for undergrad and then went to USF's nursing school and or medical school. Doesn't make this acceptable for a car. It doesn't. You have to pick. You cannot actively be proud of both of those universities at once.
I think this is tunnel vision that we have.
No,
because I think if you don't care about sports, that does not matter. None of that matters.
To get C. Bailey, now I would believe you. I would, and I think this person should come forward and defend themselves. But I think that's a joke. I'm really not. That's why the license plate's blacked out. We're not putting a real person on blast here. But now, if it was
a real person,
well, no, they are a real person. I just meant like the car is funny. Now, if they had a sticker for USF and a sticker for UCF, I could agree with you. Like, yeah, we're tunnel vision, whatever. That is a license plate, man. Like, you have to take many steps. That is not like just snap your fingers and you have that.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know how that is the thing that makes you not agree with it.
No, because I just think that that's someone who understands the gravity of what they're doing. If they're spending that much time on showing they're a UCF alumni, there's no way you're that proud of being UCF alumni and don't realize that USF is bad.
All right.
I thought the car was interesting. Shout out to them. Thank you for your healthcare service. We appreciate it very much.
Yes. Thank you.
Unless you, I don't know, who knows? Maybe you left the industry. I'm not doing what I went to school for. Like, never know for sure. But
that would make the car actually even more interesting that they still have the.
Actually, really would. I do think if you go to like medical school or nursing school, I think there's a pretty high rate of like going into that industry. I don't think there's a lot of people who's like, I'm going to do marketing instead.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. We'll get out of here before one of us says anything else more problematic.
You mean like a name?
That's actually what I was going to say, and I just didn't want to reference it again. So I stopped myself. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a podcast that doesn't have even like a slight reference to what we were just talking about. We'll be back with episode 262. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at by CA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.